Imagine lying your way to the top. Not just the top of the business world, but the top of bar and restaurant shelves everywhere. That's exactly what one entrepreneur did to send his vodka brand sky high, which is fitting for a brand named Grey Goose. But the flight to the top wasn't without ruffling a few feathers in what would become a $2 billion exit. First, founder Sidney Frank would need to contend with the ice-cold Polish and Russian brands that were dominating the vodka scene at the time. How? With a little trickery, one massive gamble, and an unusual decision to nearly double the price of other premium vodkas at the time. More on these in a bit, but first, let's talk sales. Within just 5 years, Grey Goose wasn't just the #1 vodka in the US, but the #1 spirit, reaching over 1.5 million cases in sales by the time Sidney Frank sold the brand. Sales in 2025? Nearly 3 times that. But to understand the domination and deception of this iconic brand, we need to rewind the clock to 1995. Sidney Frank was 76 years old when he walked into Olenni's Times Square pub and ordered a glass of vodka. It was a chilly October afternoon, and while the Yankees were playing the Mariners, all eyes were glued to CNBC. Microsoft had just released the first version of Internet Explorer, and Alan Greenspan was actively defending low interest rates and increasingly available capital. The invention of the World Wide Web allowed anyone, for the first time in history, to access a completely untapped international market. Companies were about to experience whopping growth under the influence of venture capital and rapid succession of IPOs. The dot-com bubble was forming. But Sidney Frank wasn't into technology. He saw something completely different. He realized that a new era of speculative exuberance was going to create a demand for luxury drinking and sophisticated cocktails. At the time, Frank was an entrepreneur best known for securing the American importing rights to an obscure German digestive called Jägermeister. It turned out to be an inspired move, turning Frank and Jägermeister into an international success. But he wasn't ready to rest on his laurels. He observed a gap in the vodka market, which lacked a high-end option. When Frank eventually launched Grey Goose 18 months later, the top-shelf vodka was Absolut, known for its iconic bottle and steep price tag of $15 in 1996. And that was considered an outrageous price at the time. To succeed, Frank knew he'd need to capture a slice of Absolut's premium market. So what did he do? A more short-sighted marketer might have undercut Absolut and charged $10 a bottle. But Frank understood the psychological power of pricing, so he just decided to sidestep all that competition and charge an eye-watering $30 a bottle. This worked because of 2 psychological principles. 1. People don't judge a product's value in a logical way. Instead, we decide how much something is worth based on the situation and how it makes us feel. And 2, the price-quality effect. When it comes to certain products, people tend to think that if something costs more, it must be better quality than something that's cheaper. As powerful a psychological signal as price is, Frank knew you couldn't rely on people to buy something just because it was expensive. He knew that if he wanted to charge $30 a bottle for his vodka, he'd need a product story that was interesting, distinct from other vodka brands, and that screamed luxury and sophistication, 2 things that vodka wasn't known for at the time. So, Frank gathered his team at his company's headquarters and told them to go to the country best known for luxury and sophistication, and bring back a vodka. That's right, Sidney Frank sent them to France, a country that didn't even have a single vodka distillery at the time. Instead, they met with cognac distillers whose business had slowed down. While vodka can be sold immediately, even the cheapest cognac must age at least 2 years in costly French oak casks, requiring expensive storage and enduring a 2% annual loss from evaporation. Despite some willing manufacturing partners, the location itself was still a risk. At the time, vodka was still deeply tied to its Russian and Eastern European roots in the minds of consumers. The prevailing belief was that real vodka came from places like Russia or Poland, regions with centuries-old vodka traditions. France, by contrast, was associated with wine and luxury cuisine. It should have been marketing suicide. Instead, it became marketing immortality. Frank understood something profound. When you can't win on heritage, you win on perception. He couldn't compete with centuries of Russian tradition, so he positioned Grey Goose as something better, innovative luxury, for sophisticated Americans who'd outgrown outdated European thinking. He was betting everything on one fundamental truth. People don't buy products. They buy feelings about themselves. As advertising became fragmented and less effective, Frank relied on bartender relationships for product placement and distinctive packaging to convey quality. Goose was shipped in wood crates, just like the best French wines. He designed an elegant and distinctive bottle with smoked glass and a silhouette of flying geese, taken from a painting by Cézanne, whose paintings were selling for astronomical sums at elite art auctions. In 1998, Frank pulled off a masterstroke. He entered Grey Goose in the Beverage Testing Institute competition and claimed the title World's Best Tasting Vodka. Frank seized the moment, placing bottles in the hands of trendsetters at the hottest clubs in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. He targeted the influencers who shaped consumer taste, arming them with premium product and a compelling story. Oversized 1.75-liter bottles commanded attention behind bars, hooking early adopters and igniting the machine. The market responded with $3 million in first-year profits, all of which Frank reinvested into advertising, including daily Wall Street Journal placements. The campaign proclaimed Grey Goose as the best-tasting vodka in the world, indoctrinating distributors and over 20,000 bartenders who would then recommend it when customers asked for their best vodka. By 2004, over 18 million bottles of Grey Goose were being sold a year, and all the major players were taking note. Bacardi came along and made an offer of over $2 billion. Sidney Frank took it. The brilliance of his success lied in how easy he made it look. Unlike his competitors, who played by the rules and frameworks of categories they were in, Frank aspired to be something different from the start, a category of one. Grey Goose wasn't necessarily better than Smirnoff or Absolut. It wasn't more authentically vodka. What it was more strategically marketed. Frank didn't sell vodka. He sold identity, aspiration, and the feeling of making sophisticated choices. Frank didn't just build a brand. He rewrote the rules of reality itself, one perfectly positioned bottle at a time. And that, perhaps, is the most intoxicating part of the whole story.